we're going to mix our challah. You're all set in mise en place. Challah is an enriched bread dough. We have honey and eggs and butter that go into it. It's a celebratory bread. We're going to make a 5 braid out of it. It's beautiful and rich and makes a delicious French toast. So we're going to learn how to mix a yeasted bread dough. I have my dough hook because I'm making a bread dough. I have my mixer set to go. We're going to mix it on the mixer. This is going to make 2 loaves of challah. I'm going to add my dough hook. What we're going to do is we're going to add all our dry ingredients. We're going to use instant yeast. And yeast, the beauty of yeast and why we use it is because the byproducts of yeast are alcohol and CO2. And we think of beer as liquid bread. So bread is a beautiful product, and we're going to learn how to make a lot of it. So I have my dry ingredients, and I'm going to add my flour, which just is a bread flour a little bit higher in gluten. Why we use bread flour or wheat flour intentionally is because, bottom there, because of gluten, and gluten is the protein that allows the yeast to rise. It's kind of like the rubber band on the interior that gives us that beautiful crumb structure. There are 2 proteins within wheat flour, glutenin and gliadin. Once hydrated, they lock in and they create gluten, and gluten is what gives us that beautiful rise in that bread dough. So I'm going to add my dry ingredients. We're using instant yeast. The beauty of instant yeast is it can be mixed right in with the dry, and that makes it pretty infallible, which I like a lot. And I'm just going to go ahead and get it kind of mixed a little bit together. I have my butter. Whenever you're mixing a bread dough, like I said, I like it smushy. Smushy is better. You know, we're really trying to incorporate it with all these other ingredients and get it emulsified into the bread dough, so warmer is better. We don't want it liquid, but we do want it smushy, like I love. I have my eggs cracked, I have my honey, and I have my liquid. And this challah bread dough formula is a straight dough method. What that means is we're going to incorporate it just all at the same time, and then we're going to knead it and allow all of the products to hydrate and come together. And we're going to look for a gluten window, and what we're looking for is a nice stretch so that the gluten is hydrated and really right where we want it to be. So I'm going to come in and add all my products, all my wet. I'm going to get my honey in there. And challah is a beautiful bread. We're going to make it into a 5 braid. It can be made in a loaf form. It makes beautiful rolls. I've done it as a dumpling. I mean, the bread dough itself is very versatile and works so many different ways. And that's super important to realize as you make these products. It doesn't mean that you always have to make a 5 braid. What it means is now you know the basic technique, and you can make anything you want to with it. It's how you take the knowledge and what you can do with it, and maybe, in my opinion, is what makes it great. So we're going to let this incorporate. I'm going to stop here and then come back and let you see it once it's really mixed itself and it's really incorporated really well. Now that the bread dough's been mixing, we're going to stop and take a look at it, and we're going to look for something called the gluten window. The gluten window means that our gluten has hydrated and gives us the stretch that we're looking for in a bread dough that we're then going to ferment. So I'm going to turn this off, get myself off my dough hook. I'm going to grab a piece of bread dough. If it's a little sticky, like this, it just tends to be a little bit, I put a little bit of flour on my hands to come in and get a piece off. It makes it so it doesn't stick to you quite as badly. But what we're going to do is we're going to stretch this bread dough, and we're trying to see kind of where our gluten is and if we have hydrated and exercised it enough, and that's how I kind of look at it. As you see it start to tear a little bit and pull and really give holes, it just means it really hasn't had a chance to fully develop, and that's what we're looking for. So I'm going to put this back on the mixer, and I bet I knead it on the mixer on a lower speed. I don't really like to turn it up very high. I think bread dough needs all the love you can give it. So I'm going to put it back on and probably let it knead for another 4 minutes. And after that 4 minutes, we'll come back and take a look at it again. All right, let's check our challah dough and see if it's ready to go. I'm going to look for that gluten window and to see if my gluten has been fully developed. It's been on the mixer for another 4 minutes. If it's a little sticky to my hands, and rich doughs tend to be a little bit stickier, I'm going to come in here and with love, pull real gently. Make sure. See, we're still going. We're still no holes yet, which is a good sign. you kind of start to see through it. And you can actually see the gluten strands that have been developed and created, and it's really what we're looking for. So this bread dough is ready to go. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get it out of the bowl and onto the bench, and from that point then we're going to let it ferment. We're going to show you how we bulk ferment it overnight and how we store it. So I'm going to take this dough off. I always bench with bread flour. So whenever I'm working with a bread dough, I always have a bread flour ready to go for me. And benching, what that means is the dough can be a little sticky depending on the dough itself. And take that out, get this out here. I do have my bench knife, which is something I use. It is a baker's best friend, and I have it with me at all times. And I might put a little bit of flour. I don't want to put enough flour where it's going to be part of the bread dough. I just don't want it to stick, right? And like I said, rich breads have a tendency to be a little softer and a little stickier, and challah bread is just the most beautiful bread dough. So there we go, we're coming out. What we're going to do is we're going to form a real pretty skin on it and round it. We're going to learn how to start working with our dough, and so you can see if it starts to stick a little, I'm going to use my bench knife and make sure that it doesn't. If I can get in here and get a little on there. What I'm going to start to do is just to start create a real pretty skin on the exterior. I have a sheet pan down below that's ready to go. It has what my product is on it. This over there. We're going to bulk ferment it overnight, and what we're going to do is we're going to allow it to rise, gain character and structure, and be a beautiful bread dough by the next day. Fermentation is where the yeast cells are going to develop and divide and make the bread dough the beautiful crumb that we're looking for. And so I have a sheet pan, and I'm going to put some bread flour down because I'm going to allow this to rise overnight. So I'm going to make sure certainly that I have it labeled that my name is on it. And we don't want to tear it, so I'm going to make sure if I need to, I'm going to use my bench knife. I'm going to come in and create this skin on the exterior. The skin on the exterior is the same skin that will be on the strands of the bread dough that go into the oven. So to round it, I come in and I call it creating a little bum. And what I want to do is round it itself and get that skin that's going to set on itself and be eventually a beautiful loaf of bread. So I'm going to set it in the middle here and round it. You can see it's really developed. It's a beautiful loaf of bread. We have a product called a bun bag. These bun bags are going to cover it. It's going to go on a rack. It does have your name on it. We do have labels that we are then going to tag what the product is and the date that it was made. It's going to go in the walk-in and be fermented overnight. All right, so we're going to work with our challah dough that we have now fermented overnight. As you can see, it's risen up. The CO2 has doubled the size of the dough. I like that it's had a chance to do it for a longer period of time. I think that gives your bread dough a little bit more character and a beautiful quality to it. So we're going to come in here and take it out of this bun bag, which is a thing of beauty. Hold it for us beautifully. If it's a little stuck, we're going to come in with a bench knife. Bench knife is the best baker's tool you can have. You don't necessarily want to tear the bread dough. We just want to be able to get it off the plastic bag. So here it is. It's beautiful. You can see it's risen up. It smells amazing. It smells yeasty and delicious. I'm going to come in and I'm going to pat down and degas it. I'm going to get ready to get it off of here. What we're going to do is we're going to make 2 loaves of bread. So this bread dough is going to make 2 loaves. So to be able to do that, what I need to do is to scale it into 2 separate loaves. How do we do that? Well, we have our baker's scale, and this is still on parchment, so that makes it really good, and I have my counterweight. So I'm going to come in here and figure out what the weight is of my bread dough. So I'm going to come in, start with a 4, which is too heavy. So I know I have a 2 and a 1, which is 3 pounds. And I'm going to move my tear bar over. So there I am. So when I look at it, I'm 3 pounds, and I'm at 11 ounces. So what I'm going to do is we're going to figure out mathematically how we're going to then divide this dough in half, and then what we're going to make is 2 5-braids. So from the 2 separate pieces of bread dough that we divide, we're going to then divide those up into 5 equal pieces.